Sure.
Oh, and there's nothing else to click to line it up.
Hey, that's true.
There's no video. We can just talk about stuff now.
I was waiting for something else to...
Man.
That I needed to press.
Talking about video games is pretty stressful. It's always a countdown. So let's just talk about Valiant Hearts. That game... Sure. That game kind of blew me away.
It did for me too, I guess. Except some parts of it.
Yeah. I don't know. Should we get the bad stuff out of the way? I kind of want to gush about it. Okay, hold on. Just because this is an audio thing, and maybe not everyone is, excited about ubiart games by default.
Sure.
Valiant Hearts, $15 downloadable thing. It's from Ubisoft's initiative to make indie-ish games with full production behind them. They're all. This is from the same ilk as Child of Light.
Yeah.
Different studios. Child of Light's a Montreal game, and Valiant Hearts is Montpellier.
Yeah, Montpellier.
Anyway, they're all off the Rayman Origins, Rayman Legends engine, which are also beautiful games. So the general sense is that these games are gorgeous 2D things, but this one really goes
beyond that.
Way beyond that, yeah.
Whereas Child of Light kind of failed.
And Rayman is a platform.
Yeah.
So Valiant Hearts is it's a 2D adventure game, kind of like Limbo or Machinaria. Jeez, all these words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm so tired right now. I'm going like, I don't think I'm saying any of these things correctly.
I like The Cave.
Or like The Cave, yeah. In fact, I kept thinking about The Cave and kept thinking about how, damn, I wish The Cave had been as good as this.
Yeah. Yeah, I kept thinking about The Cave too, with the multiple character interaction and all that stuff.
And there's even a couple of puzzles where you're using the two characters at once, and I kept flashing back to The Cave, like when you're trying to hold the lever up in the prehistoric section. Anyway, anyone who's played The Cave knows that there's like, it's like the first thing that you try and do is solve this problem, and then you're prohibited by the controls, and it's super clunky and bad. Anyway,
so it's like The Cave.
It's like The Cave, but with like a real emphasis on having a mature story. The whole game's set in the subtitle of the game is The Great War, and it's all about World War I and the intertwining lives of these people who are helping the war effort across all different fractions of the conflict.
Yep.
And that is Valiant Hearts.
Yeah. Simply put.
That game.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I actually, and having just finished it, I think that, like, I'm obviously high on having enjoyed it, but I think it might be my favorite one of those 2D adventure games. Just for having like a really good story on top of having puzzles. Like the puzzles for me are the weakest parts, but then when the puzzles are at their best, and from here on we'll just go with spoilers because I couldn't care less. We're going to talk about this game proper.
Yeah.
The puzzles are at their best when they are serving the story, and when you're sort of like the fire is lit underneath you to perform these puzzles quickly because of like the tragedy that's going on, even if there is no genuine time limit to anything.
Yeah, sure. Many complaints about the game are about like it being just a story, but that's where I think the games really shine, is that the puzzle often inform the story on when you play them, when you see people dying by your side and all that stuff. It goes hand in hand with the story, and the puzzles are at their best when they do that, but they don't always do that though.
And there's something about, so like whenever you pause the game, they flash these photograph, like these real World War I photographs with a sort of description underneath that back up or like reinforce or inform people who don't know about World War I of what the real world implications of these things are. So if you're doing a puzzle and the puzzle is about, I don't know, blowing up a guy with a grenade, then you'll press start or something, and you'll see like this is the way that shrapnel destroys your body. In World War I, people were blown to bits, and it was violent and horrific, and just anyway, like it's really scary. So there's a lot of parts there where you're going like, okay, I'm not doing this again. Like, don't mess this up. Just one time. I can't suffer fate anymore.
It's kind of funny that for the most part of the game, like the enemy will run away in a pretty comical fashion, and you'll never kill people before a long time in the game.
Yeah, and the stuff with the comedy, with the exception of the one, like the boss fights that I'm sure we'll talk about after, but the comedy ends up being really, really effective at sort of showing you giving you some
ID.
Yeah, and it sort of contextualizes things a little bit better and makes it tenable, I guess. Like I don't think that game could be as graphic as it is constantly without there being some sort of shining light to it, because it's such a, despite being like really upsetting, it's still rather optimistic. Like you're still, these people are not lost, like they are fighting for something, and you want them to succeed because they have something to fight for. And if there was no joy in the world, you wouldn't have any of that.
I actually thought that the tone of it is pretty great, that they don't always go for the most tragic possible outcome, and that sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's sad, but it'll never just be tragic all the time. So it makes it more enjoyable to play for stuff, and it makes the game is not overbearing in its sadness.
Yeah, and so the trailer for the game, like before coming out, they were really pushing the fact that one of your major companions is a dog, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like everyone who sees that trailer goes like, so this is it. I can see the emotional punch coming a mile away. Like they're going to kill that dog, and they don't. Like that.
The ending is super great.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and
it's incredible.
I don't know. I mean, I cry for anything really, but like I was just sitting there, kind of like just single tears one by one going down my face watching the game conclude.
And it's super smart. At the end of the day, the only character that you have that dies is killed by his own country, I think.
Right, yeah, they never sit there and like, it's not about the overarching conflict and how these different nations are either right or wrong or whatever. It's about just like the loss of life and how, there are no, everyone is a villain in war. Everyone is forced to do things that are terrible. Everyone is, at the end of the day, not going to come out of this clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I love the fact that one of the people that you play and you feel for tremendously is like a German soldier. Like the main premise of the game is that the first character you take control of is a Frenchman whose son-in-law is a German who is conscripted to the fight, and then this Frenchman joins the conflict to try and save the son-in-law, or to not save the son-in-law, but to like deal with this deal with the war, and like everyone wants the war to be over, so they all enlist. And and then the son-in-law, who this German soldier is like, he's fighting for his country, and he's being honorable, and he's doing what he thinks is best, and he just continues to be a hero in the story without ever paying any attention to like his allegiances. It's,
and having those four characters help giving the whole story. Like you have the scene in the prisoners of war camp that you couldn't have if you played only Emile, and you have that scene in Paris that you could not have if you only played Carl. So that Paris scene, that was my favorite part of the game by far. That the second act opens up with you play a young woman named Anna who's in Paris, and Paris is just like beautiful the way Paris would be, and she's she's going about her business, and she wants to join the war effort and she ends up going in as a nurse because that's how it would be, or as a medic.
and everything is all fine and dandy, and she's saving lives and things or whatever. And then they have that one of the taxi missions, which are those like platformy dodging
mini games.
Yeah, mini games. I kept thinking they reminded me of like Mickey Mania, like running from the moose or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, and it's playing. What's the song there? Is that the Can one?
That's the Can. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyway, and it's so lighthearted. And then after you've done this big chase to the Can, she arrives on the battlefield, and it's just the most morbid scene in the whole thing. She walks onto these like smoldering plains, and there's smoke, and there's flies and corpses, and like.
And
go ahead.
You save a guy, but there's like 10 corpses just beside you.
Yeah, and you're forced to do the kind of like limbo-y thing where you're pulling people out, like you're just pulling bodies away, and you kind of like you feel the weight of them and stuff. You're walking by like trenches that are just like, we dug this to throw corpses into it because the death toll is so high. And anyway, I thought that was so.
I really like that scene. My favorite, though, personally, is the one where you're playing as Carl and you're escaping from the camp, like in the forest, like where the guards are searching you.
Yeah.
I was real great, and the presentation so striking. Like it's the night, and you're running in the forest trying to escape guards, and you always see their flashlight passing by through trees. I was pretty well made.
Yeah, that's another one of the ones that that's a scene that uses comedy to like great effect. I thought like there is a moment in there where you are sneaking next to sheep and stuff. You're using the sheep as cover to kind of avoid people's flashlights. And then I think it's after that you start seeing like the flares and the missiles going off in the sky, and it gets really dark again. Yes. Where you're like people calling for help, and you're just like clinging to your cover, trying to make it past these people trying to, execute you. God, this game is so good. It's a crazy good game.
And it's surprising because I was pretty skeptical about it after playing Child of Light.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not the same studio, but
sort of, I guess for me, I kind of figured that like, all right, this is the initiative for these games. We're going to do generic templates of
indie games.
Yeah, or of like really played out genres and stuff.
Yeah.
And I know we've had a lot of adventure games this year, but there's nothing about this that felt canned. Like it's a very heartfelt and genuine game that feels like it was designed with a purpose and with feeling behind it.
That said.
Yeah, that said. You go ahead.
It still have some problems. I think some scenes aren't as good. Like scenes that don't involve like the big picture or the atrocities of war and whatever. Some just feel like you're playing a middling puzzle game, I'd say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think most puzzles are pretty good, but there's some that should have been left out in there.
Well, I mean, I guess the thing with the puzzles is that like most of them, at the end of the day are very fetch questy and like very obviously like, okay, I'm looking for a shoe, so go get the shoe and bring it to me, and then I'll unveil this thing so you can get the fishing rod to bring it back over here to get the can to give to the hobo. That's a totally made up example. It's not in the game, but that's the type of scenarios you're dealing with. Yeah,
and those are fine when, like I say, they inform the team like at one time you need to find a sock for a soldier that has no sock in his boot and that hurts him or whatever. I think that was great. Like it's a simple fetch quest, but that's
a big deal. Like that,
yeah, that's a big deal.
Soldiers don't have socks. This is like
that's
a thing that he needs.
But there's still some lesser one in there.
I think that some of the issues, like when you're playing as Anna and you're being the role of the medic, which by the way, like the medic mini game is basically Guitar Hero, and it's used way too much to be acceptable.
It's only great at the end. When they use it at the end, it's great.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I thought so too. But so there's a scene where you're playing as Anna, and you get to a cathedral, and there's civilians everywhere, and they're all like screaming for help all at the same time, and you just see there's no like real talking in it, so you're just kind of seeing people like flashing like I need help, I need help, I need help, and there's not like you can't you eventually save them all, but it's this feeling of like I can't do all of this at once. There's too much here for me to do, and I think it works really well. And then there's another scene like not long after that where you're playing as what's the main character's name again?
Emile.
Yeah, where you're playing as Emile, and you're doing the same thing where you're helping all your fellow soldiers, and it's just kind of you're doing it under trenches, and it doesn't. I just don't think it ends up feeling very fetch questy. Like it doesn't have the same sort of tension that scene has.
And story problems, just a little one.
Well, the fucking boss fights.
Yeah.
It's a really cartoony game when it needs to be, and like talking about like doing chase scenes to the can and stuff. And that all works really well, but then the actual boss that you're fighting is like he's like an archetype of a Saturday morning cartoon evil general. He sticks out like a sore thumb. He's like not the rest of the characters feel like they have like it would be really sad, like a great loss for humanity, like for whom the bell tolls kind of thing if they died. But then this general is just like maniacal evil supervillain, and you know, he even looks like a supervillain.
Yeah, there's no nuance to it, and it's the only one in the bunch that is like so one-sided like this. So,
like, I was trying to figure out why they caricaturized the enemy like that, and I was, you know, I do think they every time you finish a boss fight, it's usually like the end of a chapter or something really tragic. Usually follows one of those.
Yeah.
And so I feel like maybe they were trying to do like a jarring switcheroo where you're going like, oh, bombastic action to, oh, the fallout of these fights is always horrible.
Yeah, they do that often though, but without needing a caricature. Like when they do the French Cancan stuff or the Hungarian dance, all that stuff, they do the tonal shift pretty well, but they don't have a character attached to it. And that's where it doesn't work for me. It's really that there's a character that is a caricature, while all the other are more than that.
Yeah. I strongly agree.
Yes. It's still not enough to break the game, though.
No, and in fact, like, it's one of those things where the rest of the game is so strong that I just kind of, I just kind of forget about it. Like, it's not, it just kind of rolls off my back. Like, it sucks, but it's not a big problem, really.
Yeah, same thing for me. Like, when I was playing those parts, I was kind of bummed out about them. But, like, I finished the game 3 days ago, but I'm just remembering the good parts and the ending, which is so great. Yeah. So
I do think, like, so the game's, I don't know, 5 hours, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, but it is too long.
Yeah.
Like, if it were the little bit shorter, if it didn't have those boss fights, if it didn't have any of the kind of padding, fetch questy moments, it would be impossible to remember it as anything but, you know, pure delight, or well, the opposite. But you know, it's that bit long where you go, okay, I don't know if everyone I know could stomach this section of the game. That's, you know, very gameplay oriented without any of the sophistication of its narrative.
Yeah, I do agree. It was a little too long, but when you develop that thing, you don't know. Yeah. Like that, it'll make I don't know. You don't know that part will be more boring than the other one. I don't know where they could have cut without having any problem in the rhythm. But still, I agree with you that it was a little too long. It should have been like 3 hours and a half or something.
Yeah, and I agree that, like, I don't know what, I'm not sitting here going like, I know exactly what you could cut and how you should cut it. It's just games tend to suffer from being too long and from being too... It's hard to Oh, are you not here? But just that that games tend to suffer from being too long because it puts like a barrier to entry for a lot of people, I think, especially when the content is not completely polished all the time, or like not with intention all the time. So anyway, that's where my criticism ends with the game, really. I wish that it were all... I wish it all served the narrative all the time, because that's really the point that is most interesting to me.
I agree. I don't have anything to add. There's some moment that I would have that needed to be cut. Not needed, but would have been better off in the game.
Yeah,
but not many though.
No. And I don't know. I had a lot of moments playing it where I kept thinking about other war games, like specifically there's a moment in Call of Duty 3, I think, which is World War II, and anyway, we're just they've created these bunkers and bombs are being dropped on top of the bunkers, and in my head that is like white noise. You know what I mean? Like that bombs are going off in Call of Duty means positively nothing. Whereas in Valiant Hearts, there's these moments where you're digging your own trenches as the bombs are dropping, and they're so suspenseful. Like, those are bombs. They're destructive forces that could kill people on your squad. And even if there's no level of choice like that, or like, everything is scripted, the sentiment is there. The experience is like very real of wanting to save people.
It's great how it reuse like many scripted sequence from war games and make them... I mean, you care about those characters, whereas like in Call of Duty, you don't care about your character, and you know that the scripted bombs won't kill you.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't.
Yeah.
So there's no point to them in Call of Duty, but here, because you care about the character, and like, they don't all die, but you know some of them will die by the end of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I cared every time.
How great is that beginning where they just speed you through, like, signing up for the war and then going through your academy and then arriving at the conflict, and it's all 2D, so it's just like you walk into a building and then like by the time you've exited the building you're like the flag bearer charging towards the front.
And
so
I
cool.
absolutely love that it's the only moment where you attack something that looks like a human in like melee. Like you melee those, how do you call those?
Oh, the dummies.
Yeah, you melee those dummies. You strike the dummies, and it's the only time you will attack a human for all the game.
That's not true. You attack humans throughout that thing.
Just at the end.
No. There's a bunch of moments where you punch dudes as part of puzzles.
Aww. Like in the stealth sequence, though.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
The other moment in there that I thought that we haven't touched on that I thought was really great was the only scene where the dog's life is really in jeopardy. It's such a cool, like, stupid cliffhangery bait and switch, but I totally fell for it. There's a moment where you're running along with the dog, and then the dog gets trapped in barbed wire, and then there's like a tank rolling down towards the barbed wire, and it was like so stressful. And then as the tank is rolling, it cuts and it goes like across the battlefield, and then you're playing as a different soldier. But then eventually that soldier arrives at that same moment in time where the dog is about to get crushed and blows up the tank. But you're seeing you're seeing the dog from the opposite angle. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, it's a cool scene, but they won't kill the dog so early, though.
No, I know, but it's I like the way they use the cliffhanger, because it is, the dog is like really suffering in the barbed wire. It's like really upsetting.
Yeah, it's super upsetting. I'm super happy they didn't kill the dog, though.
Yeah. I feel like I can wholeheartedly recommend the game now because of the not killing of the dog. But,
I know it's crazy, but still.
I was still, I was like talking with Anna and her going like, they better not kill the dog. I'm like, they better not kill any of the people. These are people. They all matter. In fact, I'd argue they matter more than the dog.
But the dog didn't ask for this, though.
That's true. No one asked for this, though.
No one, but they understand why they're here. And the dog.
I thought some of the diaries were really upsetting. Like very pretty well written for just like people jotting down notes in their diary.
Yeah.
I don't usually go for that stuff. I usually find the diary writings in games are pretty weak.
There's not too many, though.
No.
I didn't feel like the game was grinding to a stop, so I needed to read the diaries or something. They're small and you can read them pretty fast, but they're still pretty effective.
Yeah, they're like a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
But they're good, and they contextualize. Like, I liked reading them because of the way the game is structured, where a lot of the characters kind of have to go on the assumption that their comrades are dead or aren't dead, or like that no one really knows. So then you're reading the diary, kind of having an idea of what's going on in the grand scheme of things, and how these characters are dealing with, the uncertainty of war.
Yeah. But they do make you think sometimes that one character is dead while he's not, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I could flip through my notes. I feel like that's kind of the game for me.
Yeah, that's kind of a game. Hey, it's great.
It's
Just
so
buy
great.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hate being so declarative, but it's like really moved its way up my best games of the year list really fast. Like I'm excited. I feel like I can start thinking about it halfway through the year.
It's gonna be part of the conversation.
For sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's not to be trifled with.
So buy it to be part of it.
Buy it to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Just spend some money. Don't you want to be a part of this conversation? If you're listening to this right now, it means that you listened to 30 minutes of conversation. Don't you want to just get in here? Just be a part?
Like, we spoiled everything anyway. So.
I know, right? Like, hopefully... God, I hope you... No, wait. No. I hope that you've already bought the game. This would be so bad if you listen to this thing and haven't bought the game already.
It's still worth it.
Yeah, because it has classical music.
Yep.
Like the can.
Like the can.
Alright, well, that'll do it.
Sure.
I'm Raphael Bennett.
I'm Olivier Bouchard.
And we have been talking about Valiant Hearts. Yup. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey folks, this is Raph. Just a quick reminder that if you like what we do, you can always visit the website and give us a donation. That goes towards new mics, new cameras, all sorts of good stuff. Maybe some pizza. That improves our creative forces. Anyway, thank you for listening. Have a good day.